Amin, I wanted to talk to you about the latest news. Ja Morant is coming back, and he went to counseling for a while, and, maybe people laugh at the idea of this, but he's talking about stress and stress management, which I don't know that young people get coached for, how much their life is about to change when they come into the millions and the fame, and nothing prepares you for it, really. You've told the stories here of guys who get to the league and just haven't culturally acclimated to what the league is, that their previous life comes with them, and the things they didn't learn or did learn come with them, and they might not be kids, but Ja Morant is very young and I don't want to infantilize him, but he is very young to be running an economy and an empire and playing basketball.
You remember when the story first broke?
Johnny Most has killed his voice.
Really has.
Start again with the lubricant.
Bird.
With the lubricant.
Okay.
But wait, you want Johnny Most thoughts on this?
Ja
Because
Morant.
I do
I
not
don't.
want to
I
hear
want
it.
Amin's thoughts on
I don't
this.
know.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
you could go to First Take for that, or you could go. I'm sorry, to Skip Bayless. Right? Skip Bayless is now. If you've noticed this one, he is just going after stereotype stuff on Ja Morant as the evolution of the 70-year-old guy on television who can play for clicks and just do stereotype stuff to Ja Morant.
So when we first started talking about Ja and these incidents, right, because of the Washington Post article that came out, the thing that I said was, I don't know if he knows how famous he is, right? He still thinks, it's not like, oh, he's running with a bad crowd, whatever. It's literally, he still thinks he's just Ja that, some people know who I am, but for the most part, I can live my life unfettered.
Ja show up at the mall with 9 friends because mom's been disrespected.
And think that, no, this won't get anywhere. Again, it's this idea that, like, we can do this and leave, and it won't get anywhere, right? He kind of mentioned it. He's like, when it sit down with Jalen Rose, well, I have to be better because, I have to realize when Ja shows up, that means something. I'm like, yeah. But that was the disconnect I wondered if he was going through, and it seems like it is. We had a great conversation on Basketball Illuminati this week. The episode dropped today with Chris Herring, who writes for Sports Illustrated, and he wrote specifically about the concept of mental health as being the new unassailable, infallible defense, right? And I said to Chris, when I was growing up, this is going to sound like old people thing, but like when we were growing up, the big thing was when you got caught doing something, you say, the devil made me do it. Remember that? Like, the devil made me do it. And whatever. Now the new version of that is mental health, right? Because if you throw it out there, no one's allowed to question it, right? I'm not questioning Ja's mental health state or not. I'm just saying that seems like a very, very convenient defense that you can't poke holes at, and then on top of it, you say, well, I went to counseling, and in a week you're cured, everything's great, we're good now. Like, it just feels...
He figured it all out.
Well,
7 days.
Well, instead of, and we can be cynical about this because of course not, right, Stugotz? Whatever was ailing Ja before this is not cured now because he did 7 days of introspection and stopped his life for a second and learned all the things a young person needs to learn about life in 7 days. But let's just go to the start of this, because Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan tried to break open this door, and this is what it looks like when they're like, okay, men, we're going to talk about our feelings. Men, we're going to go to therapy. Men, we're going to talk about how we're weak inside, strong on the outside, but we're going to talk about things. And we're really going to get into these soulful, emotional places on mental health and where's your anxiety and Kevin Love, panic attacks on the court. Before we get to the analyzation of Ja Morant, I would just say to you that sports and all of us right now are at a very rudimentary, crude place with learning about how to deal with any of this. Like, just
getting better, though, but we've always been there.
No, but so primal still. No. Yes, getting better, Stugotz, but it's what I'm telling you, and this is the part that I want people to understand about, like, where we're headed in sports. He comes from an executive background. Get your ass on the court and play, period. Don't give me the excuse of whatever. Get on the court and play. I don't want to hear about anything else. And a crude manifestation of mental health awareness doesn't fit with that. You're asking executives to now accept a whole bunch of things about guys missing long amounts of time. Andrew Wiggins has been gone a long amount of time because What about your mental health? Am I supposed to care about as the employer?
I think the bigger issue, Dan, isn't that, right? By the way, before DeRozan and Kevin Love was Ron Artest, who won the championship and the first.
But it felt real and genuine, to your point, because those guys were the first ones to do it. Now it feels like a crutch for a lot of guys.
Well, it's not just because they're the first guys to do it, but for them, it had been something that was ongoing, right? Like, we didn't know Ron Artest was seeing a therapist until he said, I'm seeing a therapist. She's helped me with a lot of my anger issues and all that.
She travels with me.
Yeah. So same thing with DeRozan and Kevin Love. This wasn't something like something bad happened. Oh, yeah, it's because of this. I've got to go see someone. And then, I'm cured. It's not like an upset stomach or a sore knee. It's a very serious issue. And so when we're allowed to use it flippantly, it takes away from people who are truly struggling, ongoing struggling, working on it. And second of all, it puts us in a place where there's an immunity, right? Like, I don't get to question it, which I at some point, I think, Dan, that's the problem. You're talking about guys missing time. Andrew Wiggins is missing time. It seems to be a pretty serious thing.
He's missed a lot of time.
A teammate was quoted anonymously saying he's dealing with real shit, and that's all we know, and everyone's respecting the privacy of that.
But I mean, what's unfair is we don't know. I'm with you. I see where you're headed, but it's unfair to Ja Morant because we don't know that he's not dealing with it. You know?
Yes and no, but again, Stugotz, it's convenient when it happens because something like you got in trouble, basically, because you got in trouble, and by the way, it's convenient that it got cleared up. Oh, I got in trouble, and then I did it, and we're good, right? Like, it just feels very going through the motions to check boxes and to say, see, I have atoned.
Well, this was part of Deshaun Watson's agreement with the NFL, right? That he had to, like, go to therapy, and there was a report that things were going really well after that. And so I think, like, on a case-by-case basis, you have to look at the entire situation because maybe there is a mental health thing there. Maybe he's not coping well with being in the NBA, but I think you also have to look at what he did and the harm that he's caused and whether he's being, held accountable to it. And those things can not necessarily be a contradiction with one another, right? Like, you can have some sort of mental health issue and be like, all right, I'm getting treatment for that. But at the same time, like, you made bad decisions, and that doesn't necessarily excuse your bad decision making if you knew the decisions were bad.
So that was the thing. Again, when we talked about this when it first started coming about, we talked about Royce White. And I remember I told you guys, like, Royce White has a real condition. Also, he's an asshole. And so what we could not get into was the idea of allowing someone's asshole behavior to be immunized by his condition, which is real, but not the cause of the asshole behavior. Similarly with Ja, maybe he does have mental health issues that need addressing or whatever. But that's not what happened here. What happened here is you were a dick and you thought you were untouchable. And that's what, and yet.
But this stuff is so. When I tell you that this is complicated, I will just tell you that there's someone I love very deeply, who has dealt with bipolar stuff that I cannot separate. Where does the sickness start and the asshole begin? Where does I don't recognize. I'm talking to the same person, a person I love, and I don't recognize them because of the spectrum on mental health that we're talking about here. We're talking about, like, this is such a broad topic, and sports is just getting to it. Like, yes, you can dismiss it as, oh, those are excuses, and I can tell you, man, a 23-year-old kid. And again, don't want to infantilize him, but what tools do I have to give that person so they can deal with, hey, you're a superstar now. You get it all. You get fame and money, and you could choose to either go to the strip club and throw $50,000 on the floor or work on yourself because
by the way,
all
like,
sorts of stuff here you can learn.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that part.
Right.
What's wrong is he assaulted someone allegedly and was filmed with a gun, which is a bad PR look for the NBA, although, politicians do it, and it's like part of their campaign messages in this country as well. So there's a little bit of a double standard there.
That part's amazing to watch.
But like I think that there's no indication, like what you're talking about with your friend Dan, there's no indication any of that's going on. So we have to kind of just look at.
Oh, I'm just saying he's saying stress and counseling and mental health.
And like he is young, like you said. He's not a child, but like he's young, and young people make mistakes. And I think it's fair to have empathy for him and be like, yeah, he's going through a tough thing. I think it's also fair to be skeptical when people use this as a shield, because like what I talked about this with the Formula One thing a few weeks ago. There was an episode where one of the teams got caught cheating, and the team principal, Christian Horner, was like, everyone needs to stop accusing us of cheating, because in the era of mental health, it's really affecting, the members of our team. And a lot of eye rolls were made because it is used sometimes as a shield.
I'm not
But that
saying
doesn't mean it's not a real thing too.
Oh my God.
Classic horny.
What happened?
He's married to Jerry Hallwell.
Oh, Ginger Spice.
How'd you know?
Roy fed it into my brain.
A little pop culture fun fact for you.